It's probably safe to assume that most people have experienced bullying in one form or another at some point in their life. And if you're somehow one of the lucky few who haven't, well, you've never been bullied before, you weirdo. Hey, everyone, look, this loser's never been bullied before. Anyway, when you're subjected to bullying, there's nothing more you want to see than that person or persons get their comeuppance. So how about we have a good laugh at some baseball bullies getting theirs? On September 25th, 2015, the Washington Nationals are playing a game against the Phillies. For context, this is late in the season and neither one of these teams are going to be going to the postseason, so games from here on out really don't matter all that much. At the bottom of the 8th inning in a tie game, 22-year-old Bryce Harper cuts way under a ball and hits it high into left field. This is probably one of the easiest outs you can make in the entirety of baseball. Harper, upon realizing that he's obviously out, doesn't hustle to first base and instead just kinda moseys his way on down there, which to be fair, you should always run out pop flies because there is always that potential that the player fielding it could drop it. Again, like I said though, these games don't really matter at this point. Him just strolling down to first could be seen as like disrespectful, I guess, if you're a real stickler about that sort of thing, but like, come on. Well, it turns out that someone in the dugout on his team was a real stickler about it, and his name is Jonathan Papelbon. Papelbon was known as a bit of a psycho. From screaming matches with umpires, which to be fair, that one's sort of common, to hitting people in the most blatant way possible and adjusting his crotch at his own fans. This guy has a bit of a reputation already. Now, don't get me wrong, he was good, but he was definitely known to be a bit of a loose cannon at times. So when he sees this young up-and-comer not running out a fly ball, his face turns red and smoke starts coming out of his ears. As soon as Harper gets back to the dugout, he immediately starts talking to him about how he needs to run that ball out. And as soon as Harper starts chirping back at him, that sends Papelbon over the edge. He immediately lunges at Harper and starts choking him with both hands like he's a certain SpongeBob villain. After the scuffle is broken up and Harper makes his way out of the dugout, Papelbon goes back to his standing position and just starts smiling. Just that absolute shiitake mushroom eating grin that reminds you of Axe body spray, big old Oakley glasses, and an overly lifted truck that has never seen a dirt road in its entire life. Papelbon was suspended for 4 games due to this altercation, which ended his season even though there was 7 games left. The reason he was out for the last 7 games was because he was given a different suspension for almost hitting Manny Machado in the head during a recent game. That's the clip I showed earlier. So yeah, that was it. Off for the rest of the season for him, I guess. GG. Papelbon came back for one more season with the Nationals in 2016. After 11 really strong, almost Hall of Fame type good years for him before that, he had easily his worst season ever in 2016. The Nationals and him mutually agreed to part ways, and his career ended right there. Within 1 year after attacking Bryce Harper in the middle of a game, Papelbon's previously electric career had come to an end. GG, Dipple. I won't miss you. After this Guardians-White Sox game ended on August 5th, 2023, Jose Ramirez of the Guardians accused White Sox shortstop Tim Anderson of repeatedly having dirty tags on runners. Ramirez said it wasn't just a one-time thing, and Anderson's tags were so unnecessarily violent and forceful that he could legit hurt someone with them, taking away from another player's career unnecessarily. From what I've read while researching this though, this all really kicked off because of a game that happened on July 27th of that year. Apparently, Guardians first baseman Josh Naylor imitated a base hit celebration that a former White Sox player did, and Tim Anderson didn't like that very much. This started a multi-game long trash-talking flurry from Tim Anderson that all culminated in the moment we're about to talk about.
Maybe tag him. Watch at the very end of this.
He knocked his hand off with the glove.
The question then becomes, do you consider it officially knocking his hand off, or did his hand come off before the glove pushed him off? You're not allowed to knock his hand off, and I think that's what Tim did.
He clearly pushed him off the base.
So at this point, everyone on both sides is just kind of angry at each other, with Anderson being the one who's really going hard with it. So when Jose Ramirez hits this ball fair into right field and sprints his way to second, he dives right between Anderson's legs, who's standing directly over the bag, and slides in safe. Ramirez looks up at Anderson, who he feels feels has been teabagging him for just a little too long for comfort and tells him basically, bro, get out of the way. Anderson must have said something to him. It's hard to tell since there isn't a super good angle of this, but this sets off Ramirez, who has been having to deal with this guy all series. So he gets up and starts getting in his face and pointing at him. Anderson gives him a shove, and now all bets are off. It's go time, baby. Unfortunately, I do have to be really sparing with the fight clips I show since YouTube will take me out back and old yell at me if I show too much, but they're duking it out, trust me. A few teammates step in to break it up, and while being pulled back, Ramirez gets one final shot, and oh boy, it's a clean one. He catches Anderson right in the jaw and knocks him down, which also led to this iconic sound clip.
They're swinging! Down goes Anderson! Down goes Anderson!
Down goes Anderson indeed. Anderson later said in an interview that the reason he was so ready to go off in these games was because he was going through some stuff in his personal life. And hey, you know what? I mean, fair enough. We all go through stuff, sometimes it boils over and you just lash out. Except the stuff that Anderson is referring to is he got caught cheating on his wife of 7 years. So yeah, good job on that one, buddy. Since then, Anderson has been one of the worst performing players in Major League Baseball, maybe having his worst season in all of 2024 with the Miami Marlins. He's currently trying to make it back into the majors with the LA Angels, hopefully a reformed player and person from his past controversies and struggles. Oh God, come on. Real quick, my boss has something he wants to talk about. He said it'll hurt me if I don't let him.
Mike Piazza owned Roger Clemens at baseball, so naturally, Roger Clemens tried to kill him.
Pitch way inside and hit him. Piazza is hit by the pitch ball, and he is down on his back in the batter's box.
That's really all it was. Mike Piazza dominated Roger Clemens on the baseball field. Clemens wanted to stop that, so he pulled out the dirtiest trick in the book. Piazza immediately thought it was intentional, and Clemens did have a bit of a reputation as a headhunter. Piazza had to miss the All-Star game because of this, and the Mets had to miss their best player for a little bit. Their rivalry was turned up to 11 when they reunited in that year's World Series, though. 2000 World Series Game 2. Mike Piazza breaks his bat on a pitch thrown by Roger Clemens. Clemens throws the piece of the broken bat at Piazza. Piazza naturally is discombobulated by this. Everybody in the world seems to think Roger Clemens is at fault here.
That is all Roger Clemens there. A moment started by, created by Clemens.
My gosh, that's a blatant act. Foolish. Piazza has every right to be upset.
You want to know what Clemens' defense was for this? He said he thought it was the ball. One of the best pitchers in history to this point, he doesn't recognize the texture of a baseball bat versus a baseball. So the card he's playing is basically,
I'm such a klutz, I'm so silly.
Clemens doesn't face any repercussions for this, but Piazza's reputation takes a bit of a hit. People think he's soft for not going and attacking Roger Clemens back, when he realized that wouldn't have achieved anything. So the story died down until they met in the 2001 All-Star Game, and nothing happened. But then, in 2002, Clemens had to go face the New York Mets at Shea Stadium for the first time since all this happened. Mets fans wanted Roger Clemens' head, the same way that he went for Piazza's. So when he first steps into the box, everyone is expecting him to get drilled. You get one shot, one opportunity before the umpire calls this off. They miss.
Threw it behind him. He threw it behind him, and the warning goes out. It didn't hit him, I don't think. It went behind him.
Roger, what did you think of the pitch from Estes?
I'm going to answer that. Anything else about the game?
So you would probably think here that Clemens never gets his comeuppance. The Mets literally missed their shot at him. He's just gonna get away with what he was doing to Piazza. Well, not quite. One of the most embarrassing things that can happen to a pitcher, especially a really good one like Clemens, is getting owned by the opposing pitcher while they're batting. Pitchers don't really put much attention into hitting, so them doing well against you is not a very good look. What do you think happened in that first game Clemens had to face the music against the Mets?
Leads off second, the 1-1, and a high fly ball deep to left field. Back goes Rondell White, heading toward the corner. White reaching out, and it's out of here! A two-run homer for Sean Estes. The first home run by a Mets pitcher in better than 3 years.
Oh, and for good measure, Piazza also hit a home run off him that game. To further add to the karma of this, in Clemens' home of Texas, Clemens and Piazza were the pitcher-catcher combo to start the 2004 All-Star Game, and it's generally accepted that Mike Piazza told the opposing hitters what pitches were going to come so Clemens would get shelled in his hometown. And also, Piazza is in the Hall of Fame, and Clemens isn't.
Enough said.
This next one doesn't take place in a specific game, but it's definitely bullying. If you've ever played sports in high school, you can probably relate to this situation we're going to talk about, where if you're a freshman on a team, especially if you make varsity, the older guys are going to give you some gruff. That's basically what happened here, but in the major leagues, and from the looks of it, on a pretty intense level. Jordan Hicks is making his debut for the Cardinals in 2018, and this kid has a cannon. Here's a little clip to show you what I'm talking about.
Strike one. The 1-1. It's 105 on the gun again.
104 to 105, back to 104, then another 105 is crazy. Granted, two of them weren't the most accurate, but throwing heat like this consistently is wild. Needless to say, he's got potential. This, paired with him apparently being late to team meetings fairly often, and maybe a bit of jealousy and seeing him as not paying his dues since he skipped Double and AAA, caught the attention of Cardinals veteran reliever Bud Norris. 33-year-old Norris decided this rookie needs a bit of, I guess you could call it tough love, a dying tradition, as Cardinals manager Mike Matheny called it, of teaching younger players in the harshest possible ways. He says he thinks the game has progressively gotten softer, like he's a 70-year-old boomer complaining about Gen Z snowflakes on Twitter. It's like a, oh what, are we gonna start giving out participation trophies now type beat. Also, just a little side note real quick, apparently Bud Norris would also tell on fellow pitchers for, quote, not living up to the standards the team set in spring training, and Matheny actually gave out some team fines based on these reports. So yeah, that's the type of Boy Scout we're dealing with here. Norris was described as mercilessly riding Jordan Hicks, pause, for every little possible thing he could jump on him for. Pause. A lot of the exact information on how he would reprimand Hicks is unknown, as it wasn't usually in front of the public, but from how some people describe it and also some of Hicks' responses to questions about it, it seems more along the lines of hazing versus just getting after him for being late to meetings. Put it this way, if the hazing is making the news, it's gotta be kinda rough. Hicks wasn't the only target of Norris's berating, but he was by far the most frequent. He seems more like the mean older brother who always makes sure you know how much of an idiot you are for every little mistake you make. Bud Norris was 33 years old and Jordan Hicks was 21. Both of these guys could have had plenty more time together with the Cardinals for a few more years, especially with Norris having a decent season as the Cardinals closer in 2018. However, Norris's contract ended with the Cardinals after that season, and he never pitched in MLB again. A 28-save closer's career ended the same year he decided to start pestering and tormenting a kid who could throw 105 instead of, being a good teammate and a decent human being and making the kid feel comfortable so he could blow 105 by other teams. I'm not saying they're related, of course, because obviously, the manager was cool with it, but, that's just what happened. Hicks was interviewed about the behavior and treatment he'd been receiving from Norris, and when asked by a reporter if he thinks it will one day pay dividends in his career, he said, "I have no idea. No comment." Yeah, that quote definitely sounds like someone who appreciates being singled out constantly, and definitely doesn't sound like someone trying not to stir the pot and get himself picked on even more. Hey, call me a Gen Z snowflake if you want, but in my opinion, I don't think being an abrasive douche constantly is the peak of leadership. Like, this isn't the army. These guys aren't going to war. They're just playing baseball and getting paid millions. You don't need to be a hardened veteran to be good at the game. And if you're as frustrated with this guy as I am, don't worry, because his career fizzled out pretty quickly after that season, like I said earlier. He did have 28 saves, and his last season was pretty good, but I think the way this article I used while researching ends is a pretty good send-off. Norris and his career 4.44 ERA might not have a glittering career to look back on when all is said and done, but he can at least rest on the knowledge that he did his best to preserve his personal vision of baseball. What a goober. Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm putting this guy on here because he definitely did some bullyish activities, but to be frank, this guy is just kinda overall a psycho. You may or may not know him, but you definitely hate him. Ladies and gentlemen, Albert Belle. Before even getting drafted, he already had a reputation of being an unhinged, angry psycho. He was suspended and kept from playing in the College World Series in 1987 after chasing down a spectator. To be fair to him in this specific situation though, they were yelling slurs at him, which is like, not okay. This will be the last time we will be fair to him in this section of the video, but it won't be the last time he'll have some interesting interactions with fans. During his first MLB season, he became a raging alcoholic, and I mean raging. He was sent back down to the minors after the season and was also forced to do 10 months of rehab after he apparently got drunk and destroyed a bathroom. He was moved back up to the majors in 1991, where he would receive his first suspension in the major leagues. After hearing one of the fans in the stands taunting him, he picked up a ball and nailed him in the chest with it. I'm sure there's a lot of MLB players that wanted to do this at one point or another when fans were talking smack, but the fact that he actually did it is just ridiculous. He received a 6-game, I'd probably say deserved, suspension. Heading on over to 1994, he received another suspension in this season. This one is, I don't even know if crazy is a strong enough word. It's something. In a game against the White Sox, one of Belle's bats was confiscated. They were quite suspicious of this super slugger, so the umps took it back to the umpire's locker room. And so his team, knowing that the bat was corked, while it was still in the locker room before they had a chance to inspect it, sent his teammate Jason Grimsley to go get it back. And he decided that the best way to carry out this mission was to crawl through the air ducts, Amoga style, drop through one of the ceiling tiles, retrieve the bat, and replace it with one of Paul Sorrento's bats. The only way the umps found out that the bat had been replaced was because the janitor noticed there were broken ceiling tile pieces laying on the floor, and upon further inspection found damage to the air duct itself, showing that someone had literally crawled through it. And I guess having Paul Sorrento's name etched into the bat also, it kinda gave it away. It was a whole thing. MLB even threatened to get the FBI involved to find out who did it. It was a disaster. Belle ended up getting suspended for 7 games over this ordeal. Hopping over to his 1995 season during the World Series before Game 3, he was mad that there was so many reporters in the dugout. And so, Belle, being the completely sane, normal, and rational person he is, went on a 5-minute long profanity-laced tirade screaming at NBC reporter Hannah Storm. He was fined $10,000 for this situation, and then another $100 3 days after, but not by MLB, by the police when he chased down some teenagers in his car after they egged his house. Besides all these crazy situations and suspensions, apparently he was just overall a terrible guy to exist around. You could even say it was like walking on eggshells around him. Apparently, he was extremely abrasive to everybody, not just PR people. Paul Hoynes was quoted saying, "It wasn't just us. He would sit there and dare people to talk to him. He would abuse the clubhouse guy, the PR guy, everybody." Stories like this are everywhere with this guy. He did a Mortal Kombat finishing move on another player during a game, destroyed a thermostat in the clubhouse after setting it to 40 degrees so it couldn't be changed because he wanted it cold and no one else did.
All of a sudden, the guy's coming in, it's like, "Man, Albert got the thing cold, you walk in there, I go in there and use the bathroom or something." The guy's in the big old winter coats on, I'm like, "What's going on?" So I went up there and I turned it back to 80. He got mad, he turned the thing down to 40 and took it back and just tore up the dang thermostat.
And for good measure, telling base runners on his own team not to score easy runs when other people get big hits so he could get the credit for driving them in next.
And I'm taking a touch first, and I turn around at first, I touch third, I look up, Albert's halfway down the line. So he wants the RBI, right? So all of a sudden he comes in, "Man, don't stop next time, Kenny, man, don't, just stop at second base." I said, Albert, it's a double. He said, well, trip and fall on the base or something.
Yeah.
Belle was slowly getting his comeuppance in other ways, having controversially lost the 1995 AL MVP award to Stark Raving sports friend Mo Vaughn. It was never consistent just desserts though. Later, he became the first player in MLB history to make $10 million in one season. But then, thankfully for everyone around him, he did eventually sustain a hip injury that ended his career in a whimper at the age of 34. Actually, just calling it a hip injury doesn't really do it justice. It's actually kind of sad. He literally developed degenerative arthritis in his hip, so like that sucks. But hey, at least he wasn't able to terrorize the greater baseball industry when his body debilitated about as abruptly as a star player's ever has. Seriously though, that does really suck. His hip pain just got so bad that by spring training of 2001, doctors concluded that he was physically unable to play baseball anymore, and it all just abruptly collapsed for him. No Hall of Fame for Albert, no chance to even try for that with how quickly it all ended. In many ways, it's almost karma for having a persistent, never-ending reputation as the meanest, surliest guy you could possibly have on your team. But hey, on a happier note, he has turned it around in these past years. He seems to be a lot calmer and not as ready to throw a ball at your chest or run you down in his car anymore. An interview he did on the Chris Rose rotation does provide reasonable hope that Belle has turned a corner and isn't the type to consistently push around any player he can. But I mean, at the same time, that doesn't really change the fact that he was an absolute villain during the time he played though. And as the villain of his own story in baseball, he was defeated by his own body on behalf of everyone he wronged as a player. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for watching. As per usual, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, please. If you made it all the way to the end, I don't know, just comment cheese or something. Anything just helps with the algorithm. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. Have a lovely day, gamers. Peace.